What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are going to be discussing winner of the Most Dead Game of 2019 award and absolute living meme, Anthem. Anthem is probably so happy Fallout 76 came along to take some heat off of it, but the thing is, shockingly, Anthem may stage a comeback. Now, Anthem is a really interesting subject in and of itself. I actually covered this game quite a bit before it released, and I gotta be honest with you guys, I was legitimately hyped for this game. Like, every time I got to play it early, I had fun, and when the game came out, I legitimately had fun. I loved flying around, shooting missiles mid-air, hovering, engaging enemies, triggering those combos. All of that stuff was extremely satisfying, and even making builds, it didn't have that bad of a loot system, and you'd get a really sweet legendary and craft a build around it. All of that was sweet. But one of the reasons I did enjoy myself off the launch was that I was lucky, in the sense that I wasn't plagued by the multitude of technical issues in this game. It's hard to have fun in a game that's bricking your console and destroying your frames per second, and just, this game had so many technical issues. It was really a roll of the dice whether you could basically play the game at all. Not to mention the other big issue. My enjoyment was there, but it started to go down, and it kept going down, and it never climbed back up. And that's because, although the base gameplay loop, the mobility and stuff like that in the game was actually enjoyable, there was nothing to do with it. There was no endgame. It was just basically as if Destiny 2's endgame ended with Nightfalls. Right? Like, the end game for Anthem was replaying missions and the strongholds that you already replayed during your first campaign playthrough of the game. Like, there was really no substance there, and, you know, if you were crafting your build, what's the point? To beat the mission you already beat at a slightly harder difficulty? You know, it really didn't have enough substance to the end game, and it just flopped. Not to mention what was supposed to save the end game and provide an actual end game activity was the Cataclysm event, but that was delayed months and came just way too late. It's really another classic and unfortunate case of a rushed game. A game that did some really cool stuff. I would point to that mobility system as being phenomenal. Like, what other game are you hovering, engaging enemies, flying again, landing, all pretty seamlessly? Go play Battlefield, right? Run around and then get into a jet. Do you know how many people cannot fly those jets and crash into the ground immediately? Anthem gave everyone one of those Battlefield jets, but actually made it work. That is commendable, but I think they spent so much time on that dang mobility system that they just didn't have time to do anything else. There was like 3 different world bosses in the game. You can only fight so many of those titans before you just get sick of it. However, if you are someone like me, someone who did get some enjoyment out of the game but then just got bored of it and was like, you know what, maybe they'll make this game better in the future and maybe I'll come back, things weren't looking real good because there was a mass exodus of Bioware staff. Most of the main people behind Anthem are gone. They left Bioware, and that is not good. Whenever you see that happen, it means problems are on the horizon. And because of that, many people were saying, well, like, Anthem's not going to stage a comeback. This thing is dead and it's going to remain pretty dead. However, only recently, an article came out on Kotaku from Jason Schreier, who is one of the best sources for inside information involving gaming. He's almost always right. And what he's actually saying is that a comeback is not out of the question, that Anthem may not be dead for that much longer, and that's because EA is apparently still working really hard on Anthem. The Bioware development team is spending resources and spending time working on what they're referring to as Anthem 2.0 or Anthem Next. Which is kind of funny because the same scenario I'm describing here, for those of you saying, oh, Anthem will never come back, there's no chance of that happening, it literally already happened with the other game, No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky was dead on arrival, almost as dead as Anthem. I would argue, you know what, even more dead than Anthem, because that game broke so many promises. It said it would have multiplayer, it didn't have multiplayer, all of that. It was a huge disaster on launch. But the developers at Hello Games didn't abandon it and ended up releasing, funny enough, called No Man's Sky Next and No Man's Sky Beyond, and now No Man's Sky is at an extremely playable and enjoyable state. It's actually flipped its reviews to mostly positive on stuff like Steam, and it has a lot of critical reception. They literally fixed that game. They revived that dead game. So it's not like this is something that's completely impossible for another game like Anthem. And what exactly are they doing with it? Well, according to Jason, many of the details are still in flux, and there's no clear timeline for the Anthem Next project just yet. So maybe it'll come this year, maybe it'll come next year. They're not quite sure yet, but the developers aren't sure whether they want to release a huge, overwhelming patch and just have Anthem Next as this big thing. The game is totally different, or release smaller chunks of content and improve the game in big ways, but over the course of several months. Now, you may be wondering, well, what kinds of things are going to change? Well, apparently it's most of its biggest overarching systems. So its mission structure is going to be one of the things changing, and that is a very good thing. The missions in Anthem were pretty trash. They basically broke down to, start at a certain area, fly to another area, fight guys, fly to another area, fight guys, fly to some sort of last objective, and you're either doing basically one of two things. You're either defending an objective, whether that's a downed carrier or ship or whatever, or something you just need to stand near, or you need to do a fetch and retrieve mission. So go and get these things, go and get these, enemy eggs, or go and get these pieces of repair tool or whatever. It really didn't matter. You could replace all these different words, but you all know the same missions. It's like the following missions, these defender missions, and the retrieval missions, and they were just reskinned versions of one another. There was no interesting missions in Anthem. Well, hopefully this will actually change it. Another big thing they're changing is the loot. So Anthem's loot is also getting a overhaul, and we could see some very interesting things, like they could go the way of a Destiny, where the legendary or potentially something above legendary rarity is like an exotic. You can only put one on at a time. That's actually what Diablo 4 is going to be doing with the mythic rarity. Or they could be going a more Diablo 3 kind of way, where they don't end with legendaries. They have different versions. They have primal legendaries and ancient legendaries and stuff like that. They could be simplifying, they could be complicating. I don't exactly know, but overhauling a loot system is a big deal. And the last thing they're apparently overhauling is the world of Anthem, which undoubtedly is a very interesting place, but there's just not enough going on, and that's partially due to the mobility. The fact that you can fly and traverse the map so quickly, right? Like, Destiny allows you to have sparrows in some places, and when Bungie wants an area to feel bigger than it actually is, they take away your sparrow, like on Mercury. Well, in fairness to the Anthem devs, they never did that. You can fly like anywhere, but that made the world seem fleeting, like you're just going past everything, just looking, at those missions and world events that would pop up. You're just locking onto those and flying past all the interesting things, and there just wasn't a lot of interesting things along the way. The world bosses were pretty scarce. Again, they were very similar to one another. You'd have slightly different versions of Titans. Every once in a while, you'd find like an Ascari, and really the most exciting thing that would happen is that there would be two Ursas or two Titans in the same instance instead of one, and that was really it. And yeah, there was actually a decent amount of caves and dungeons, and although I think these got a bad rap, and they're actually often pretty unique compared to one another. Some go into the Shaper relics, some are just normal caves, some are delving into the Scar bases, and so on. The problem is that at the end of all of these caves is one of those super boring mission structure things that we talked about earlier. Like, it's those same fetch or retrieve or defend this objective mission at the end of every single one of those caves. So even though they look pretty different, actually, they feel exactly the same. So improving the world, like the mission structure, the loot, and the world, are kind of the three main complaints about the game. Like, endgame is kind of a mix of all three of those things, making the loot better and having, certain loot only drop in certain places, and have endgame missions, special endgame missions, and then improving the world so it's more interesting. That would, doing those three things, solve the endgame problem as well. In fact, the overhauls are so substantial that apparently in the studio, they're thinking of launching Anthem Next as a new game. But they do say it's unlikely they'll charge full price to current Anthem owners. In my opinion, they shouldn't charge any price. They should do exactly what No Man's Sky did, release a free update, and hope that you've done enough to improve the game enough that all the people that hated on it are now wanting to buy and join. And again, that's exactly what No Man's Sky did. It was the most noble and best thing for the community. And to be honest, hearing all of this makes me happy. I never like when a game completely dies, like especially a game like Anthem that does some cool and unique stuff. I wish Anthem would have been better. It should have definitely been delayed. There was no reason to release it as early as they did. And, these big studios like Activision and EA need to realize that you can delay a game and spend the resources to improve it, or you can spend those same, probably more resources later to improve the game after the fact, right? And then hope everyone comes back to it. It's just not the right way to do things. Make the game as good as possible. Take the time. Gamers are willing to wait. We don't mind delays. I mean, look when Shadowkeep got delayed. Bungie was getting praised because people were like, good. We don't want a rushed product. We're sick of seeing things like that. But at the end of the day, the fact that they're spending the resources to improve this game is certainly better than just leaving it dead. So in a year or two, will we all be playing Anthem Next? Well, as much as that sounds ridiculous, you know what? When Destiny 2 was at its worst and, the player base declined by 85% in a couple of months, if someone said, hey, in a couple of years, is everyone going to be talking about Destiny 2? I would have said no, but that's exactly what happened. Destiny 2 improved massively, Bungie went independent, the game is free to play, the player base has never been bigger. So you never know, like, a game is always fixable. But to be honest, I just hope they start making games good in the first place, for goodness sakes. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this interesting. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Anthem content when Anthem Next comes out, yeah baby, be sure to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me, follow me on Twitter at RickCactus. That is linked below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.